island of New Guinea is the second largest island in the world, and a lot of people have no idea where it's at. It lies south of the equator and north of Australia. It's only about 90 miles from the upper tip of Australia to the southern coast of Papua New Guinea. Being a pilot was the dream of my life since I was about 5 years old. At that time, we lived in a place called Everett, just north, not too far north of Techney here. And my dad had a country store there. And one afternoon, we heard a plane fly over the house, very low. I ran to the window and looked out, and it landed in a field, a freshly harvested hayfield, just across the road. And it taxied back to our side of the field, so we all ran over there to take a look. And it was a beautiful, bright red biplane. And my oldest brother told me it was a Waco. And anyway, I looked at that plane. It was beautiful. It was magnificent. I ran my hand over the taut skin, fabric covered. He picked me up and let me look inside the cockpit, and I was hooked. Ever since then, I wanted to be a pilot. After my first year of high school, which I did at home, began to feel that God was calling me to be a priest. Of course, my brother John had been in the seminary for 5 years already. The Lord sure kept pulling me. He really twisted my arm, and I finally gave in. So, but I thought I had lost that for life, and also I became very interested in electronics because our eldest brother ran a radio repair shop in our home, and I was very interested in how everything worked, the radios and all that kind of thing. They used to be big tubes in those days. But after I was at the minor seminary at East Troy, Wisconsin, I heard that the SVD were using planes in New Guinea. It had been since 1935. And they said possibly they'll use them afterwards. So my hopes still rose. I love flying. I love just the joy of being up there, the freedom of it. I love the view. Of course, you don't see much of an airliner, but if you're in the front seat of a small plane, you have this whole panoramic view. Just to see all God's creation. In a way, to me, flying was a bit like a meditation in a sense. All the beauty there, the clouds, the weather, the sky, the blue sky. Now and then you see rainbows here and there. One thing I enjoyed, and other people didn't believe me till they looked, as you're flying over a cloud, below you there'll be a shadow of the plane on the cloud below you, and around that shadow is a completely circular rainbow. And you see it go dancing up and down on the clouds as you go along. So there are all kinds of things there that when I was flying, I just flew and enjoyed what I was doing. All the way through the central part of the island, you have very high mountains. Call it the spine of the island of New Guinea. These mountains range on average about 10,000 feet. They make it very difficult for transportation there in New Guinea. Well, the first job I had there was as a mission bush pilot with our mission air service, also an aircraft mechanic with that air service, based here at Wewak. And we flew mainly within this area, but also up to Lanimo, to Goroka, to Hagen, and Telefoman up here. We used single-engine Cessna aircraft. They had 4 seats, so pilot and 3 passengers, or the pilot and about 700 pounds of cargo. We also used a German plane called a Dornier DO-27. And that plane would carry more. It was very good for our rough airstrips. It carried about 1,000 pounds or 5 passengers. Most of our airstrips were quite rough. They were just grass strips built by hand. And so many were of minimal length, width, and general situation. So that was one of the so-called delights of flying in that area.